Howdy, I'm Buffalo Bill Cody. Welcome back. In this series so far, I've introduced myself. I've covered my youth through young adulthood as a wagoneer, hunter-trapper, frontiersman, and a Union Army Cavalry Scout during the Civil War. Most recently and today, I'm discussing my years as a scout for the cavalry in the last of the Indian Wars, which took place between 1868 and 1895. My scouting years were not only eventful, they coincided in a time of intense interest by the U.S. population about the frontier. On the East Coast, where the overwhelming majority of citizens live, the Industrial Revolution was underway. Immigration exploded, and so did settlement of the West. The public needed an escape. The public was intrigued by what was going on, or were led to believe was happening on the untamed frontier. Many, especially youngsters, yearned to be just like the frontiersmen of that era. I met their needs, growing into an idealized role model. My exploits during my scouting years gained national attention. There were local and later national headlines referring to specific events featuring my name. Indian War correspondents on the plains were plentiful. There were laudatory public comments, official reports, and commendations from very senior officers in the Army. Dime novels and comics featured me, loosely recounting real events in my life. As demand for stories grew, so did fictional accounts, featuring me as the hero. Wherever I went, I was an event. Notwithstanding, and even with the hype, my standing in the eyes of the public would not have been possible without authenticity. Next, did you know that I was awarded the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for valor? That award, to me, has an interesting history. I was a civilian when it was awarded. It was later withdrawn, and after my passing, the award was restored to my family. The year of my award was 1872. Here's what happened. In 1872, I started my acting career on stage, but stayed responsive to be called up for scouting duties for the U.S. Cavalry. Scouting gave me opportunities to leave the grind of stage life and return to my beloved plains. In April 1872, I reported for duty in a campaign against Indians. After 2 days on the trail in Nebraska, at the South Fork of the Loopy River, I and 6 cavalrymen discovered an Indian camp. I guided the troops within 50 yards of the camp before we were discovered. I personally engaged in combat with several Indians who lost their lives. My actions were considered and reported as valorless and served as the basis for the Medal of Honor. I, myself, did not consider this encounter as much of an action. Perhaps it was my overall performance as scout being rewarded. It was what my seniors needed, a single heroic event on which to build my reward. I continued my duties as scout, became a justice of the peace. I was elected to the Nebraska legislature, but never claimed a seat. However, I did appreciate and adopted being referred to as the Honorable William F. Cody. I merged my real self and stage character into an event. Buffalo Bill Cody, man of the plains. Whether on stage or in the streets or on the hunt, my presence was treated as an event. Consequently, in subsequent engagements as scout on the plains, I began wearing my stage costume in the field. Trouble and violence between Indians and settlers continued to periodically flare. This time it was with the Sioux, whose lands were invaded by miners. Gold had been found in the Black Hills. So it was that in the 1870s the Sioux went to war. The war became all too real when Custer and over 200 of his men were annihilated in the Battle of Little Bighorn. Custer's defeat was ironic. On a previous occasion, Custer led an expedition onto Sioux lands that discovered the gold in the Black Hills to begin the mining surge. Indian chiefs who led the Sioux included Chief Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull. More on them later. News of Custer's defeat reached our location 12 days later. We were all shocked. I was incensed. As I knew Custer, I thirsted for revenge. My column was tasked with containing a group of Cheyenne who had left the reservation to reach Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. We located the Cheyenne group near War Bonnet Creek in northwestern Nebraska and were waiting for their arrival in ambush. However, we noticed groups of Cheyenne very excited over the sighting of an accompanying wagon train with 2 troopers ahead of the column. A group of 7 Cheyenne was dispatched to intercept the 2 troopers and kill them. I volunteered to lead a small group to intercept the detached group of Cheyenne. We waited for a signal from the lookouts, indicating that Cheyenne reached the best place for us to overtake them. That way, the presence of our cavalry hiding in the ambush would not be revealed. When the signal came, I was in the lead. I found myself face to face with the leading Indian. We simultaneously fired at each other. My shot wounded the Cheyenne and killed his horse. My horse hit a hole and forced me to the ground. And once again the Indian and I exchanged shots. He missed, and I shot him in the head, killing him. His companions fled, then turned to retrieve him but failed because my troopers came into sight. The remaining warriors in the group fled. I instinctively ran up to the body. I ripped off the war bonnet and scalped him. Picking up both bonnet and scalp, I yelled, "First scalp for Custer!" to the joyous acclaim of my party and other troopers. The larger Cheyenne group fled towards the reservation when they saw the troops come out of hiding. When my actions were reported, there was national acclaim, despite the fact that this action, but for my killing of Yellow Hair, that was the name of the dead Indian, was no battle. The only casualties were Yellow Hair and a cavalry trooper thrown off his horse. The trooper recovered from his injuries. When I returned to the stage, I once again had a glorious deed to include in my show. Over the years, I fully leveraged this confrontation with Chief Yellowhair through reenactments both on my stage and in my Wild West show. By September of that year, my employment as scout came to an end. During my scouting years, I had ridden thousands of miles carrying dispatches. I scouted the plains and fought Indians. I cemented my persona in the eyes of my Army commanders, troopers, in the cavalry, and the public as an authentic, heavily sought-after frontier hero. Next, we'll explore the transition from frontier to stage. Until then, happy trails.